Jacques, good morning. How are you?
Hey guys, good morning. What's going on? Yeah, Darren DeQuano, you were professionally lit for sure. Did I come in hot there?
No, you're great, bro. You're great. Great background this morning.
I know.
Checking into Casa Duce.
Look at all that back there.
Yeah, it's just when you get old, you collect stuff.
No doubt.
You know.
No doubt. I get
But
it. What did you make of Brian Kelly's demeanor in his first week of Alabama LSU matchup as LSU's head coach?
well, Jordy, I thought it was a lot like Nick Saban in terms of eliminating the clutter. We're not going to make this a big game. Let's not step outside of ourselves. Let's just try to focus on this being a game. It brings me all the way back to Nick Saban in 2003 when Georgia came to town, and that was the first time he pretty much said, hey, look, the sky's not going to fall if we don't win this game. We don't need to create a lot of anxiety and whatnot for our players. And Nick Saban was right in that case. LSU beat Georgia and then lost to Florida, a game that had little hype that year. So I thought Coach Kelly came across very professional. He came across very much in charge and in control of what is going to take place. And I think that it'll hit him on Saturday night, the true essence of LSU football. Because we haven't really had an LSU-Alabama game in Tiger Stadium generate the kind of Tiger Stadium, at least atmosphere and magic, since 2018. And we certainly want this game to go a lot better than that one went against Tua and company back in 2018. So, I'm not sure if LSU's ready to step in the ring and exchange punches with Alabama yet. But then, my heart's telling me that they are. My head may be telling me something different. But LSU's trending in the right direction for sure, and looking forward to a big game. Because I would say, if you're an LSU fan, the last 5 trips that Alabama has made to Tiger Stadium have just been agony and misery for a combination of reasons. You should have beat them in 2012. You definitely should have beat them in 2014. 2016 was 0-0 after 3 quarters. Yeah. 2018, you get beat 29-0, and then 2020 was probably one of the most depressing scenes I've ever seen on LSU campus during the COVID season. Alabama's in town. You mentioned Darren DeQuano. We drive right down the street on Nicholson Drive, no resistance, about a 5-minute drive, nobody on campus, nobody there, and then Alabama beats LSU 55-17. The famous Ed Ogeron taking the headset off and throwing it on the sideline that night, that kind of, showed that the end was near for him just, less than a year after winning the national title.
LSU is a 2-score underdog in this game. The more that I hear people talk about it, whether it's locally or nationally, feel like it's going to be a pretty good game. What do you expect of this game, 5 days out, 6 days out?
My concern for LSU is, can they run the ball? A lot has been made, or people are saying Alabama's defense isn't as good as what it used to be, and this and that. And I think they're just looking at that one game in which Tennessee scored 52 points. Jordy, I used to joke that runs per carry against the Alabama defense was my college GPA. 2.2, 2.3, around that point. This year, it's 2.7. But, Josh Williams has been an amazing story, the former walk-on, what he has done as far as blocking, receiving, running the football. If you would have told me that he would have been the feature back before the year, I would not have believed it. So can he and Armani Goodwin give LSU what they need in the rushing attack against an Alabama defense that's giving up less than 100 yards per game on the ground, and LSU averaging 142 rushing? A lot of that's coming from Jaden Daniels, your quarterback. And so does Jaden Daniels still pull the trigger out there? I felt even in the Ole Miss game to an extent he was a little shy in pulling the trigger. Can it be more like the Florida game in which, hey, look, let me throw it up to Brian Thomas. Let me throw it up to Jeray Jenkins. Let's see what those guys can do. And certainly there'll be some personal locked in with all this with Eli Ricks on the corner. You heard Nick Saban in his press conference yesterday address that, saying that, look, he played very well against Mississippi State the last time out. We don't need him getting caught up in any personal, emotional stuff this weekend because he's playing the team that he used to play for. So does LSU try to get in his head a little bit in this game? So I'm rambling. There's a lot of things to talk about. I mean, if you read the Alabama perspective, they feel like their wide receivers are very pedestrian.
Yeah.
If you remember the 2019 LSU-Alabama game, I remember CBS put a graphic on the screen that Alabama had like 4 wide receivers that ran a 4.2 or less or around there in the 40-yard dash with Devontae Smith and
Ruggs, Judy.
Waddle.
Yeah.
These guys are not like that. So can LSU, kind of lock them down a little bit? And these two running backs that Alabama's got, Gibbs and McKellen, they look like, two horses, but they didn't run the ball at all well against Mississippi State. So, and as you and I talked about yesterday, does LSU's performance in Tuscaloosa last year mean anything? Yeah. Different coaches, different schemes, whatever. But the fact that LSU went in there last year as a 30-point dog and almost won the game, should have won the game if they had any kind of offense, does that give LSU some confidence? I do not think Alabama will be overlooking LSU. This will be they will be locked in. They will be told how loud Tiger Stadium is going to be. They're going to be told it's a madhouse, and I think they're going to be very focused in this game.
LSU beat up Bryce Young in this game last year. I mean, that was the first time you had seen Bryce Young kind of look and seem confused at times and also take some shots. Last year, LSU's defense was teeing off on him at times. Jacques, you've covered all of these. You've even covered, dating back to when Saban was leading LSU and beat Alabama for the first time in Tiger Stadium in something like 30 years back in 2002. What stands out is first before we get there? Is this a rivalry to you? I mean, is this a rivalry game?
I would say that it is the game every year that brings the most intensity from the LSU perspective. Alabama's got a rival in Auburn. LSU, the rival has changed over the years. In the early 2000s, I feel like it was Auburn for LSU. Then it kind of morphed into Florida during the Tim Tebow time. And then when Nick Saban became the Alabama head coach in 2007, that really got a lot of people emotional and charged up. I think that in the early days of Saban, 2007 till about 2012, through that, I felt like these two teams were on an equal level. LSU felt like they could exchange punches with Alabama, and they did for the most part, even in the games they did not win. And then around 15, 16, it started, Alabama kind of started taking over in terms of in the trenches, and Les Miles and company kind of started going on the downward trend. So I do think that it's the game that LSU fans want to win more than any other. That is clear. And, there's a saying, facts don't care about your feelings. And I hate to say it, but, LSU has beaten Alabama once, since they left Bryant-Denny Stadium after the game of the century and Drew Alamo kicked the field goal and LSU won 9-6. LSU's beaten Alabama one time, and it took the greatest team of all time to do it in 2019, 46-41. So from Alabama's perspective, they got to look at it and say, you guys are on a rivalry. But I think Alabama obviously knows that LSU has been the biggest threat to them in the SEC West. But it's interesting now, so much power shift to the East. Now you got Georgia and Tennessee coming up strong in the East. So, maybe their perspective is maybe they're worried more about Tennessee, obviously, who just beat them.
Were you in Dequano and Tuscaloosa in 2001 when Rohan and Josh Reed shredded Bama?
Darren was there. I was not at that game, and I was there in 2007 moving on. Yeah. But certainly I remember the 2001 LSU team. I remember Nick Saban and the fans saying, we're paying this guy $1.2 million a year, and his secondary is terrible. If you remember, Kelly Washington in Tennessee roasted
absolutely.
LSU.
Demetrius Hookfin.
Yeah, that rough night. I think he had 14 catches or something. And then Steve Spurrier smoked Nick Saban twice.
He did.
At the beginning of his career, at Saban's career at LSU. 2001, Rex Grossman, I think, threw 5 touchdowns at 51-21 in Tiger Stadium. Jabbar Gaffney, a 2:30 CBS game on a gray afternoon. It was just awful.
Beautiful, yeah.
And then, so I remember Ole Miss, Eli Manning and company beat LSU in Tiger Stadium. I think they blocked a punt, and LSU's offense was too conservative. And the next week, that's when they went to Tuscaloosa and said, hey, let's just air this thing out, and did for 528. Josh Reed caught 291 of the 528.
And had a 60-yarder called back. If you remember the halftime interview the week before, Saban threw Jimbo under the bus. I don't know what's going on with our offensive coordinator. He won't call any. We're being very conservative on all. I mean, just threw him completely under the bus.
I remember the UAB game, the UAB disaster in 2000 when I hate this. Sorry, Josh, but Josh Booty threw that pick at the end of regulation. And Nick Saban said, well, our quarterback called a play that wasn't a play, never was a play, never will be a play. And UAB kicked a field goal there at the end, 13-10.
But I was going to get to you. What moments stand out covering these games over the years? There's been so many high moments and so many crushing moments as well.
2007, LSU was so much better than Alabama. So much better as far as talent. And somehow LSU and they managed to keep Alabama in the game, John Parker Wilson and all that. And I believe Nick Saban said something like, I knew who the ball was going to. Why didn't my defense know? And that was Early Doucette on the
fourth down
the crosser. The quick post. I think it was a 4th and 4. And then Hester scores a touchdown after Chad Jones made the play. 2010, I thought, was one of Les Miles' finest hours. LSU was not expected to beat Alabama in Tiger Stadium, and the Mad Hatter pulled out. River left. Remember, Greg Stadral was the offensive coordinator. D'Angelo Peterson, big D'Angelo Peterson, number 19, on the tight end reverse, goes down, and Reuben Randall from Jordan Jefferson across the middle. Long touchdown, catch and run. 2011, standing right there on the field, Michael Ford in overtime. Just cut it inside, man. Just cut it inside the pylon, and you score a touchdown. He stepped out of bounds, kicked the field goal. They won the game. I was at the national championship. That was a brutal, brutal affair, and I just can't understand when you got 40 days to get ready for a game. That's what you roll out there in one of the biggest games of your life. Just rough. And over the years, I mean, certainly the heartbreakers, back-to-back heartbreakers in Tiger Stadium in 12 and 14. And this is kind of the same thing when you talk about a guy like Harold Perkins who's got talent, but this is what coaches fear. In 2012, Jalen Mills decides to go after the quarterback, and that's not what he was supposed to do. And then they drop it off to A.J. McCarron hits Yeldon in the flat. Yeah, for the screen pass and the touchdown. And so that's what you're scared about, younger players. And then 2014, Jordy, I mean, you know how ESPN does the winning percentage. When Kendall Beckwith recovers the fumble at the Alabama 5-yard line with less than a minute left, LSU's winning percentage at that point had to be like 95% or something. You're at the 5-yard line in a tie game. Yeldon just hands you the ball on a silver platter. Badal Alexander gets hit with the personal foul. They get backed up. They kick a field goal, and somehow LSU allows Blake Sims and company with no timeouts to go the length of the field, kick a field goal, go to overtime, and lose. I mean, those games they're just wretched, thinking back on them. So those are and 2019 being there for that was finally, LSU just kicked their butt. It was 33-13 at the half, and it should have been 40-13 in the third quarter. LSU was marching again, and then Burrow got hit from behind and fumbled. But it's just really hard to beat those guys, Jordy. The thing about Saban is he loses so very little that the losses are so memorable. It's like the kick six against Auburn. LSU's greatest team has to beat him. Those kind of things.
Tennessee's greatest team in the last 25 years.
Right. A field goal gets tipped at the line and barely makes it over the crossbar to beat Alabama. Those are the kind of things that happen. I know Clemson whipped them in the 2018 national championship. I think it was 40-18. But you never really beat Alabama. You just get by if you do have more points.
I still remember Dan Bournet in 2014 telling the fans to stay off the field with 45 seconds left, and I remember thinking,
oh no.
I remember Les Miles. Les Miles was not a guy that got angry very often. But I remember at his Monday presser, I think he got a little angry. He kind of said, can't we make that announcement a little bit later? Why do we have to say that? Because he heard it. He heard about it,
Yeah, right.
And so, then LSU, they kicked the ball out of bounds.
Cameron Gamble.
Oh, God, that's the best.
Brutal.
That's the noise. It really is.
It was brutal.
Yeah.
But now for the first, and look, I don't want to take shot. I'm not taking shots. I'm more to say of Kelly. For the first time since Saban's left here, it feels like you're actually on even playing ground on the sidelines in this matchup. I mean, a lot of smoke and mirrors. There's been a lot of fake field goals and onside kicks for LSU in this series, right? I mean, it feels like now you can line up and scheme them. Yeah,
Les Miles was not a big-name coach when he came to LSU. Ed Ogeron was a big personality and certainly, has had a fantastic career in many aspects. But they did not have the reputation. I mean, Brian Kelly had a much better reputation than Nick Saban when Saban came to LSU. So, yeah, I mean, Brian Kelly is one of the most recognizable coaches in the country, and I think that is what makes this game really intriguing to an extent. Now, maybe down the road in 2 or 3 years, Kelly might tell us, I knew that we probably didn't have the horses to win this game, or maybe he'll tell us, I felt like that we were peaking at the right time, and we did come through. It'll be a fantastic game to watch Jaden Daniels play in this game because he is the kind of quarterback that gives Alabama problems. I'm not breaking any news there. I love Danny Etling. I love a lot of the quarterbacks I've covered over the years, but the drop back passer, Mettenberger, these guys, I guess perhaps could have beaten Alabama with a few more plays, but it's the guy that can break out of the pocket and run for 20 yards when Nick Saban's got the play totally diagnosed. That just drives him nuts. And I think that Daniels could give LSU a chance in this game. That can Tiger Stadium impact the game? It's interesting. I interviewed Jacob Phillips, linebacker from even the 2019 team, and I asked him one time, what was the best atmosphere you ever played in? And I expected him to say the 2019 Florida game. He said the 2018 Alabama game,
wow.
Which, Tiger Stadium was on fire that night. Jordy, after that game, I promised myself never to get caught up in the hype again.
Right.
I think LSU had Navy SEALs come in. They had all these motivational videos. When Coach O came down the hill and was pumping his fist like a professional wrestler, I drank the Kool-Aid. I said, today's the day. It's a beautiful day. Today's the day. And then the game started between the white lines, and Alabama won 29-0. So all that outside stuff has nothing to do with the game to an extent. But I do think that the Tiger Stadium crowd can impact the game. And this will be – everything's going to line up for the crowd to be peak Tiger Stadium. Does it make a difference? We'll see.
What do you make of that Tennessee-Georgia game?
Interesting that Georgia's an 8-point favorite in the game. I think that's just a compliment to Kirby Smart and what he's accomplished there and what he's built at Georgia. They're obviously a juggernaut. Tennessee being on the road, if they were playing at home, maybe it's more of an equal contest. But certainly, I think that if you're a college football fan and you've got Tennessee and Georgia playing leading into Alabama and LSU, this is what you think about during the summer as far as college football and the essence of college football and stadiums and huge crowds and tailgating and college campuses and all those things that, I love pro football. And I love covering it. I love going to Superdome to cover games at noon on Sunday. But there's never really a pro game that you can say, at least in my opinion, man, I'm really looking forward to that game more than I'm looking forward to Tennessee playing Alabama or, Tennessee playing Georgia or LSU playing Alabama. There's just something about college football that, in my opinion, makes it the best sport to cover.
Jacques, have a great day. It's good to catch up with you as always, man.
Thanks for having me on, man. We'll talk some more this week.
Absolutely.